Hi, business ownership, not-for-profit businesses. The first one we have up is a cooperative business, okay? So these are business ownerships which are owned by members. So not by shareholders, not by owners who are going to take out dividends and profits, but actually by members who could be working in the organisation or actually using the organisation because they're the customer of the organisation. So if it's owned by members, we could have a worker cooperative. This would be something like a shop that has been started, where some money has started the company. The workers are then benefiting from working for a company that is looking after their interests rather than trying to make profits to distribute to shareholders. A customer cooperative, I've written here something like a school or a bridge. I work for a non-profit making school which was actually started by other businesses who needed to be able to send their kids to a school in a foreign country but giving British education. So you see, this is a customer cooperative that was actually created by people who needed to use the business. A bridge, for example, you might have, say, two mining companies that have quite a long distribution sort of network to get to a port or something like that. And two mining companies might say, actually, we'll build a bridge. Now, it's a cooperative that builds the bridge because they actually want to be able to use it eventually. The key thing with cooperatives is that objective is not to profit maximize. The key thing with the cooperative is to either satisfy the workers or the customers, whatever reason it was started for. However, if you ever need to make an evaluation point about this, the objective might not be to make a profit, but it's a private sector business. If they were loss making, they would eventually have to shut down. So evaluation, in the long run, they must make a profit to survive. So in that respect, they're quite similar. Okay, next up we've got charities. These are an organisation that raises money for good causes. I'm sure most of you are aware of charities. They'll either receive donations or they'll do events and fundraising. All goes towards whatever the cause that the charity has been created for. Now, a point here, charities must keep their costs low. They'll often have volunteer workers who are working for free because they are trying to get as much surplus money as possible to go towards changing their cause. But in evaluation of this, what you see with a lot of the larger charities is that because they've become huge organisations, it's difficult to manage. They may end up still employing highly paid executives to actually run the charities effectively. And so in that respect, they could actually be similar to a profit maximising company and not necessarily doing this kind of keeping costs low, which we said before. Okay, pressure groups. Pressure groups are groups of people who attempt to influence decision makers in business, politics or society. So we always talk about pressure groups when we talk about external stakeholders, but we've got to keep pressure groups happy because they have the ability to maybe organise a protest, boycott our products or damage our reputation. Maybe they might post things on social media. So pressure groups such as Greenpeace are trying to influence businesses to be more environmental. An evaluation about pressure groups, if ever you want to consider actually are they having a big impact, just consider the fact that pressure groups are trying to take on huge TNCs and actually they might have very little resources. So how would they actually compete with a business with far greater resources than themselves? Okay, then the last one, which is a bit of an odd one out here, but I categorised it in this sort of other types of business ownership, is just public sector. Never get confused, please, between public limited companies and public sector. Public limited companies are still in the private sector. They just have shareholders that can be bought by anyone. Public sector is government owned and run businesses, okay? The reason for these businesses is because we have such a thing called public goods. These are goods which no private sector business would supply because it's not possible to make profit out of them. If we look at something like a lighthouse, for example, all boats going past a lighthouse benefit from that lighthouse's presence. Therefore, how do you charge one customer money for using the lighthouse? You can't. So what happens is public sector organisations are often trying to correct this market failure where there's actually no products being produced by the private sector, so they need to do it. The other one is merit goods. These are goods that consumers under-consume. Things like education, vaccinations, maybe even healthy foods. Governments will actually subsidise these, give grants, and try and make these cheaper. So public sector organisations will also totally supply the merit goods such as education, because actually if the population is under consuming these, we won't get the benefits that these products give us. So the public sector actually intervene in the free market there. Any kind of public sector evaluation, you tend to want to focus on the opportunity cost to a government. A lot of the governments are running their annual budgets in deficit. So to say, quite simply, produce more public goods or invest more in education, invest more in healthcare, there's always an opportunity cost. You're always going to have to forego a next best alternative. So evaluation with public sector is usually considering how they manage their budget.